A quick note before you read this piece is written from a fan's perspective, pieced together from a rough, hard-to-follow voice note-style transcript rather than an official script or confirmed spoiler sheet. Some names and details in the source material were garbled or unclear, so a few connections here are my own best guess at how the threads might fit together. Treat this as speculation and fan commentary, not a factual account of what actually aired. If you watched the real episode, your mileage may vary, and I'd genuinely love to hear how close, or far, this lands. If the chatter going around is anything to go by, this was a big one for the Inimba household. There's a real sense that the family has finally been handed something to smile about. A young person in the house is heading back to school, and after everything this family has weathered, that alone feels like a small victory worth celebrating. It's the kind of episode where the writers seem to want the audience to exhale a little before the next storm rolls in, because Inimba rarely lets anyone catch their breath for long. A lot of the emotional weight this week seems to sit with the fallout from an earlier, murkier storyline, one involving a young woman who was reportedly drugged and is now grappling with serious gaps in her memory of what happened to her. She insists, plainly and without hedging, that she can't recall anything beyond a certain point, and that insistence appears to land as sincere rather than evasive. There's a strong suggestion in the material that whatever happened wasn't something she consented to or orchestrated, that she was, in effect, a victim of circumstances engineered by someone else entirely. Whether the show ultimately vindicates her fully or leaves a shadow of doubt hanging over her for a few more episodes is hard to say from the fragments available, but the emotional through-line is clear. A young woman is trying to hold her head up while the people around her decide how much grace to extend her. Where things get particularly charged is in how her family responds. There's a recognition, voiced, it seems, by someone older and steadier in the household, that going to the parents' house to try to explain herself directly might not have been the wisest move on her part. It's framed less as an accusation and more as the kind of gentle, after-the-fact hindsight relatives offer once the dust has settled. Maybe that wasn't the moment for that conversation. It's a very Inimba kind of beat, someone acknowledging a misstep without piling on, because the family seems more interested in getting to the truth of what happened to her than in punishing her for reaching out clumsily. That said, the show doesn't let anyone off the hook completely. There's a pointed moment where an adult in the family essentially says, "Mistakes happen, trust is something you extend to people and sometimes it backfires, and that's simply part of being young." It's a surprisingly tender piece of writing if the transcript is anything to go by, less "how could you" and more "we see you, and we're still here." The refrain that comes through again and again is that family is supposed to be a soft place to land. An aunt will be there. A grandmother will be there. Nobody is meant to feel like a single lapse in judgment, assuming that's even what this was, should cost her the people who love her. Still, there's tension bubbling under the surface about how much this ordeal has cost her parents and the wider family emotionally, and a sense that everyone is meant to feel grateful nothing worse came of it. It's a classic soap balancing act, sympathy for the young woman at the center of it, without letting the seriousness of what happened get minimized either. Meanwhile, on a completely different emotional frequency, it looks like Wandle's redemption arc takes a real step forward this episode. After what sounds like an extended stretch of behavior that's left the family reeling, described almost like someone who's been showering everyone with apologies lately, trying to make up for lost time, so Wandle apparently decides it's finally time to face the family properly and offer something more than words. There's a clear sense of enough is enough, it's time to actually show up, which tracks with the kind of slow burn redemption Inimba tends to favor over quick fixes. Whether the family accepts this olive branch at face value or makes Wandle work harder for it remains to be seen, but the door, at least, seems to be cracking open. There's also a thread about a young man, referred to in the material as Euclothy or something close to it, coming to a decision about initiation and tradition. The language here is fragmented, but the gist seems to be that he's made peace with a choice around custom and manhood, framing it as something he's arrived at deliberately rather than been pushed into. Given how much Inimba has leaned into generational and cultural tension in past seasons, elders wanting tradition honored, younger characters wanting room to define things their own way, this feels like it could be setting up a longer arc about identity, respect for custom, and what it means to prove yourself in the eyes of family and community. Elsewhere, there's word that a couple in the show, the material points toward Bavumal and a partner, may be encouraged by people around them to try for a child, seemingly timed around a milestone like a matric dance or the end of a school chapter. If that's accurate, expect this to become a slow-simmering source of tension in coming weeks, especially if other characters have opinions about the timing, and on this show, they always do. Speaking of matric, there's a suggestion that the matric dance itself becomes a flashpoint. One storyline hints that a character named Elithai goes out of his way to make sure someone's matric season is special, possibly against the wishes or expectations of someone else in his orbit. Soap math being what it is, going out of his way for her matric, plus there will be drama at the dance, usually adds up to a love triangle, a secret, or both. Keep an eye on this one. The most emotionally tangled thread this week seems to revolve around Zethu, her baby, and the question of who gets to claim a place in that child's life. From what's there, Yuthandika's son appears to genuinely care for Zethu and wants to be present for her and the baby, not performatively, but out of real affection and a sense of responsibility. And it sounds like Yuthandika herself is coming around to the idea, even entertaining the thought that one day Zethu could be her daughter-in-law and the child could formally be family, not just family adjacent. There's a lovely little piece of dialogue-adjacent sentiment buried in the fragments, something like, why should it matter whether the marriage happens? The child is family regardless, which, if that's really the spirit of the scene, suggests the show is nudging viewers toward a broader, more generous definition of what makes a family a family. That's a theme Inimba has flirted with before, but it lands with more weight when it's coming from a mother-in-law figure who could easily have gone the other way and gate-kept the relationship instead. Not everyone is on board, though. There's a clear undercurrent that Yuthumika, likely a rival or a more traditionally minded relative, isn't thrilled about this direction. The material suggests she has her own pride or ego wrapped up in how this plays out, and that she may be setting herself up for disappointment if she keeps holding out for a different outcome. Meanwhile, someone, possibly Euclothi again, seems to be caught in the middle, trying to support a son's choices while managing a difficult parent's feelings about it. Zethu herself doesn't have it easy in this episode. There's a rough patch involving her recovering from what sounds like a difficult medical event, possibly a cesarean section, right as tensions boil over with her own mother, who apparently tells her, in no uncertain terms, to get out of the house. That's a brutal thing to face while physically recovering and caring for a newborn, and it's easy to see why Yuthandika's household, and possibly Yuzulani's, becomes her safety net in the aftermath. There's mention of Yuzulani's house specifically as somewhere she ends up, which suggests the show may be building towards Zethu finding stability and support there, even if the road to get there is messy. And then there's Yuzulani, who seems to be positioning himself as the one who might formally negotiate lobola on Zethu's behalf, a notable gesture if it's accurate, since it signals he sees himself as invested in her well-being at a level beyond just being a relative or a bystander. It's framed as something he's open to rather than pushing for outright, which fits the show's habit of letting big commitments simmer rather than rushing them. Taken together, this episode reads like one of those mid-arc chapters where several long-running threads all take a small but meaningful step forward at once, a young woman edging toward clearing her name, or at least being believed by the people who matter, Wandel finally choosing accountability over avoidance, a young man settling into a decision about tradition and identity, a baby storyline that could either strengthen or fracture two families depending on how Yuthumika's jealousy plays out, and Zethu finding out, the hard way, who actually shows up for her when things get difficult. If even half of this is close to what actually aired, it's easy to see why fans are calling it one of the stronger episodes of the run, not because of one explosive twist, but because so many characters seem to be facing consequences and choices honestly, without the show reaching for a shortcut. Whether the writers keep that momentum going into the next episode, or throw in a curveball to shake things up again, is anyone's guess. Again, this recap is fan speculation built from a messy, partial transcript, not a confirmed or official account of the episode. If you caught the actual broadcast, feel free to fact-check me. Soapies have a way of zigging exactly when you expect a zag.